Hello and welcome to another video by Rick Miracle. Me. In my series, Freemasonry and Satanism. Oh my, this ought to be an interesting video. Lots of news. Current news. Historic news. Information. This will be Phoenix Journal. Number 20, the Mossad Connection, Part 6. And I wouldn't keep making videos on this particular book if it weren't for the fact is it keeps revealing more interesting and even maybe insane, concerning evil information. Here's a bunch of words for you. So you can get these journals. I think there's about 120 of them online at a couple different websites. I got one of them here. Somewhere. Had to look around my pile of documents on my different bookcases. But this is number 23. Burnt offerings. Guess when I hold the book up close to the camera, it takes out the light. And blood-stained sands. Page 104. So what? Now that you're scared out of your wits. Well, you can stop blaming and taunting and flubbering about. Do you have time to prepare? I just randomly opened this up. I don't know. You would have if you had listened. Now, I can only work on possibilities and probabilities, for it can be on Tuesday, or 2 years from Tuesday, or. And here we are in 2017, and a lot of people say to me, you know, Rick, they've been saying this stuff is going to happen for a very long time. And then they'll say, well, nothing's happened. So nothing is going to happen. Well, I would say that a lot has happened. It just hasn't happened to those people. When it does happen to them, like it has happened to others, they'll go, how did this happen? I didn't see this coming. So we can talk and talk and talk. People just are not going to say they saw it coming. This video ought to be a little enlightening. So as you know, I have little tabs. So I know where I left off on the last of this. And even where the tabs are, I put little notations. 119 part 5 was above. Cut my finger with a knife while I was cooking. So I know where to continue. So I'm just going to start reading and then interrupt this particular video with a couple other documents when the time is appropriate. Saddam betrayed. Remember, this is back in when this one was made, the Phoenix Journal, number 20, the Mossad Collection. Trying to see the date here. 1990. So think about it. We've had a lot of time to prepare. But they keep causing all these distraction, terror events, and other events. It just seems they have the USA and the world population under some kind of trance. And people are just not focused on this problem that's appearing before our very eyes, and has been appearing, of this new age and this new world order. And I can assure anyone, if history is any indicator, this World War III, whatever event they're going to do, this new age and new world order, is not going to be very nice. Contraire, a lot of people will be killed, and those who are left alive will be suffering. There won't be water systems and sewer systems and electricity. There'll be martial law, SWAT team like police, military vehicles with all kinds of high-tech weapons. People will have to get microchipped. I wish this wasn't true, but the evidence seems overwhelming. So Saddam Betrayed is a continuation in this Phoenix Journal number 20, the Mossad Connection, page 138 or 76 if you download it, because they put 2 pages on every page on the PDF download, which are free. So you can go look it up, verify, and read more about what I'm talking about for free. Phoenix Journals, a couple different websites. Saddam was given the green light to invade Kuwait by the U.S. administration. See, a lot of people just don't know history because we all pay attention to what we see on the TV, the boob tube. Now he sits betrayed along with all your soldiers and you. So all these wars overseas, by the way, are costing the USA Treasury a lot of money. And even President Donald Trump, this is 2017, the 22nd of April. But anyways, they're revamping the tax system, the income tax and other taxes. So I suspect they need to get a lot more money. Price of gas is going up. So they're devaluating the dollar, threats of war with Russia, some challenges with China. Then the plans are to invade Iran after they get through with Syria. So it seems. The evidence is coming forth, so pay attention. There is an obvious cover-up. For instance, this is back in 1990. On only one point, the material sent by Saddam, that would be the leader of Iraq, to show and play for the U.S. population, had deleted all the information regarding conversations between heads of state of Arab nations and between the U.S. ambassador in Baghdad, April Glaspie, and Saddam Hussein on July 25, 1990, in which she told the Iraq leader that President Bush desired better relations between the two countries and that the United States had no position concerning Iraq's border dispute with Kuwait. So in one face, they're talking to Saddam Hussein and currying favor with him. That material has all been taken and placed in security with no comment status by reasons of national security. Check it for yourselves. So you're going to find out that I check and double check and recheck this material. That's why I keep getting a plethora of more material to inject into these videos. And if you get a pad like I do and take notes while you're watching videos, like I've been watching a couple of videos even this morning, Saturday morning. It's like 11:32. I'm actually a little early. I usually don't make videos until about 3 or 3:30 till 5 or 5:30. But this was on my mind because of some of the crazy information I found out. Further encouragement to Saddam was given in congressional testimony delivered by Assistant Secretary of State John Kelly on July 31st, just 2 days before the Iraq invasion. When asked by Representative Lee Hamilton if the United States would come to Kuwait's defense if it were attacked, Kelly replied, "We have no defense treaty relationship with any Persian Gulf country." Secretary of State James Baker had absolutely refused any comment as to whether or not Ms. Gillespie's statements were appropriate and directed by the President. Baker said he would not deny the tolerant and friendly pre-invasion U.S. policy toward Iraq. But I'm going to say to you that there are probably 312,000 cables or so that go over my name as Secretary of State from the Department of State. In other words, just as Pontius Pilate, the leader of the Romans, who was in charge of the trial to crucify Jesus, he conveniently washed his hands of betrayal conspiracy while attending the planning of the opposition to bring your world to its knees by total subterfuge. Ms. Gillespie was recalled in August from Iraq and has not been seen publicly since her recall. So the news got out that there was friendly relations. April Gillespie, as I read earlier, published the fact that she was told the Iraq leader that President Bush desired better relations between the two countries and that the United States had no position concerning Iraq's border dispute with Kuwait. So did the USA say, hey, hands off, we're not going to intervene if you take military action with Kuwait in one phase, but behind the scenes and to the public, they were waiting for Saddam Hussein to attack Kuwait so that they could attack Iraq. If they had warned Saddam that the United States would defend Kuwait, one has to wonder, would Iraq have ever attacked Kuwait? And apparently one of the problems with Kuwait back then is Kuwait wasn't going along with the price fixing of oil by OPEC. It was doing its own thing. Selling the oil cheaper, maybe? But anyway, so Saddam felt it necessary, border dispute or oil, and apparently, according to April Gillespie, the United States had let him know that the United States had no interest in this dispute. Bush himself has conceded that the U.S. sent no strong signals to Iraq, that America would oppose military aggression, although he insisted that there was some reason to believe prior to the invasion that attempting to improve Western relations with Iraq might well modify Saddam Hussein's behavior, plus some mushy mouth and mumbled non-response to queries. So behind the scenes, a lot of us already know that this planned Middle East thing was going on way before this 1990 invasion, and then of course all the invasions after 2001, 9/11, and even for 100 years prior to that, with the program called Aliyah, the leadership of the Jews have been encouraging in rather unusual ways, even instigating anti-Semitism, causing economic hardships to whole countries, blaming it on the Jews, creating anti-Semitism, so Jews would move to Israel. There's a plan. One of the reasons for the recent budget discipline of Congress was to get at the Democrats in the House who have begun to question and openly dispute the State Department's policies towards Iraq throughout the 1980s, charging that the Republican administration of George Bush and Ronald Reagan encouraged Saddam Hussein to invade Kuwait by providing him with material and moral support. Now, what's the truth? What we read in our newspapers, what we see on TV, owned by the secret society elite, the Illuminati, the Zionist Jewish people? Or somebody trying to blow the whistle here, the Phoenix Journal, and all the other material that I've gone over and that I will continue to go over, and find new material, which I already have. It just falls on me daily, as you shall see soon. The first criticism, the soft policies towards Iraq by the Bush administration were certainly no secret. There was, however, the first serious criticism of U.S. Middle East policies leveled on Capitol Hill in the wake of the invasion and the U.S. military response. This barrage did not come forth, however, until the Bush administration began proposing to sell Saudi Arabia up to $24 billion in advanced weaponry. Pro-Israel members of Congress immediately demanded the sale be scaled back, and the administration acceded. Adding fuel to the fire were charges by Senate Intelligence Committee Chairman David Boron that by the time Kelly's testimony, the CIA had already predicted a really high degree of probability that Iraq's military was ready to assault Kuwait. Information ignored seemingly by the administration. So we know behind the doors there was a plan, and we've seen it. It's easy to talk about it now in 2017 when one looks back over the last 40 years and more, 150 years, 200 years. If you've been studying this stuff, watching videos on YouTube, buying books, alternate websites, you're not going to get it from the Main Street media newspapers. Republican Tom Lantos of California called the administration's past approach to Iraq a policy premised on fiction and fantasy. He also went on to allege that the obsequious treatment of Saddam by a large number of high-ranking Bush administration officials encouraged him to invade Kuwait, and there was no escaping that responsibility. But Lantos and several other pro-Israel members also accused the administration of trying to sneak the Saudi arms sale past a Congress preoccupied with negotiating a budget and wrapping up work prior to the November elections, and that it was trying to use the Gulf crisis as a cover for the sale. So there were people in Washington behind the doors trying to sneak a $24 billion weapon sales to Saudi Arabia. So I thought to myself, I've watched a lot of videos, I've read a lot of books, and there's only so many hours in the day. But I remembered accusations that the Saudi king and the government were actually Jewish. And I know the deception is beyond belief. So I did a little homework. Deputy Secretary of State Lawrence Engelberger quickly announced that the administration would review the arms package on the basis of the complaints it was hearing from Capitol Hill. So, there was a lot of people in the United States, and there are a lot of people today, that probably are not aware of what is going on really behind the scenes with the infiltration of the world by certain Jewish influences and not all Jewish people. A lot of Jewish people, like Henry Mackay, PhD, Jewish author in Canada, who has written a couple books and a lot of essays you can find free online. Henry Mackay, M-A-K-O-W. And I highly recommend you have a notebook when I'm talking about these things. Take some notes and go look up Henry Mackay. Stop watching my material altogether if that's what it takes. But go look up Henry Mackay. Read his material. Here's a Jewish author, PhD, smart guy. Watch some of my previous videos. I mentioned other Jewish authors and people trying to warn the rest of us. So you can't say it's all Jews. But you can say, throughout history, there have been a lot of Jews, it's part of their culture, who are into the Kabbalah, which is, for all practical purposes, a satanic and Luciferic cult, kind of a religion, witchcraft. And I've found more material recently that just supports that and supports that and supports that. These people have been dominating the world through deception for a long time, been causing a lot of problems, and it's going to get much worse, so it seems, which maybe I'll be able to show in this video. So I looked up, I said to myself, Rick, that Saudi Arabia is a big country. Right in the middle of all of this, 911 countries that were overthrown, Saudi Arabian king was one of Bush's pal, where Bush got its start and money and all that. A lot of people know that. Saudi Arabia, that's where Bin Laden came from, who apparently he, according to accusations, was the one who orchestrated 911 from some cave in Afghanistan. He was from Saudi Arabia, part of the royal family, apparently Jewish. And it was supposed to be Saudi Arabian Arabs who were on those planes that apparently, how the story goes, flew into the Twin Towers, and so much more, which again, Webster Tarpley, Synthetic Terror. I've made a video on that book, go look it up. The details are just too obvious. So it was an inside job, but they were blaming it on these Arabs, and apparently they were from Saudi Arabia, but instead the United States again attacked Iraq, which doesn't make any sense. Weapons of mass destruction, which never appeared. A lot of deception, a lot of lies. So when I did go scratching my head, reading the Phoenix Journal about the Saudis, and remembering from historic videos and books that I had read, that the people have said that the Saudi king and the hierarchy, the leadership, were Jewish. So I said, well, I better look into that. Saudi royal family is Jewish king and prince of all Jews. So, there's a bunch of pages here I've gone over, as you can see. Look at all those. I've read it and highlighted it. So I thought I'd read it for this video because it was mentioned. 24 billion in weapons to Saudi Arabia. And the leadership is Jewish. And billions and untold billions, probably trillions, have been given to Israel. And they even have nuclear weapons. And they're overthrowing all the countries in the Middle East. And if you look up Greater Israel, I've showed those pictures, you can see yourself that they have plans for a, looking through my pictures here, for a Greater Israel. And a lot of Jews are trying to warn the rest of us. So in the Jewish camp, there are those who have turned away from God and have turned towards Lucifer, the fallen angels, which seems very real, as we have seen in my previous videos, and I've got some exploding material in future videos. Well, I went through that pile of pictures, but I couldn't find the one I wanted. But you can go on Yahoo image site and look up Greater Israel, and it does show the outline of an area encompassing half or more of the Middle East, including Syria, parts of that, Iraq, Saudi Arabia. So there were some pictures here I did see that I'll just show you. So apparently these secret societies, Illuminati, Zionist, Kabbalistic, Jewish people, and others are involved in this satanic Illuminati witchcraft cult to the nth degree. That's like infinity. And of course there's pictures like this: Syria, Iraq, Iran. These are all planned, and apparently they're planning on taking over the world. And on the Yahoo image site for Zionism, or the Illuminati, or any of this stuff I talk about, you'll find these pictures and you'll find a link that tells the story. That's what I do. So back to this document, when I went to look it up, that I just found unbelievable. Before I read from it though, I'd like to point out one other thing. Because I'd just like to find out how much strength is in this news I'm reporting. So I went on Yahoo search, and I put in Saudi Arabia, Jewish king. You can do this. Anyways, you're not going to believe it. 3,360,000 results. The chronology, the House of Saud. Rulers of Saudi Arabia, 1932 to the present. Jewish Virtual Library. The Saudi royal family are crypto-Jews. And I thought more about that. Every time I read these words, my brain lights up. And I remember Fritz Springmeier's book, The Bloodline of the Illuminati, which names a lot of famous people around the world, Rockefellers, Rothschilds, DuPonts, Lees, all over the world, who are 13 bloodlines, the head of the families all over the world, that are part of this Illuminati secret society cult that are planning the New Age and the New World Order. And I've been watching another video all morning we'll get to for a moment about one of the whistleblowers, one of the people who escaped from the Illuminati and tells all and supports everything I'm saying. So 3,360,000 results. The Jewish roots of the Saudi royal family. Think of the implications. This is where George Bush got his start, his wealth, his family. And we've all been watching the Middle East. A lot of countries were overthrown. Saudi Arabia wasn't overthrown. Saudi Arabia apparently had a strong hand in 9/11. And also so did Israel, even with the Israeli intelligence people videoing 9/11 from a building top in New Jersey. Some Israeli men were arrested in white vans around New York with apparently evidence of bombing materials, etc., were immediately released, went back to Israel, were on TV bragging about their exploits. So I'm going to read from this document I found. Saudi royal family is Jewish king and prince of all Jews. And remember, back in 1990, according to the Phoenix Journals, 24 billion in weapons were being sold to Saudi Arabia while we were planning on attacking Iraq, while we were being very pleasant to Saddam Hussein of Iraq and letting him know that we would not intervene in his military exploits with Kuwait in their border dispute. Jews are the one in charge of Kaaba and Medina and make a lot of money. All the Haji money, Uran money, oil money, and Saudi taxes go to the Jews in Israel to kill Muslims. Now remember, as Prime Minister Sharon of Israel said, we control the USA. And weeks later, or whatever, he was in a coma. You think they wanted to shut him up? And then in 1913, the Rockefellers, in cahoots with President Woodrow Wilson, created the Federal Reserve, or the legislation for it, or the preparedness for it, the agreement for it, in Jekyll Island with Senator Hyde. Always liked that about the Jekyll and Hyde things on the Bugs Bunny cartoons and other cartoons. So there really was a Jekyll and Hyde situation. And that when they took over the USA money supply with the Federal Reserve, which isn't federal, it's a private bank that cannot be inspected, the books reviewed. They don't have to disclose anything to anybody. And so they've crashed the system 8 or 9 times. Every time they allow we the people to work 10, 20 years. Think about it, you grow up to be 17, 18, 19, you get out of college maybe at 22, 23. Plus or minus, some people didn't go to college. But you work for 20 years, 30 years. And you're a wise person. You buy a house, you save some money. You think you're somebody. And then the Federal Reserve raises the interest rates, withdraws the money from society, and all the things that you've invested in, you can't pay for. Things get tight. Your wife loses you, leaves you. Your children are angry. They don't understand. What did you do wrong? The whole economic family collapses all across the country. And these people, these Illuminati, secret society people, these graspers, take it all in, like the savings and loan collapse, the other bubbles, Silicon Valley, 2008, housing collapse. Then they use wars and all kinds of other things. So they let things grow, and then they take it all back. Generation after generation. 8 times since 1913. And if they didn't take over the Federal Reserve, they wouldn't have been able to start World War I in June of 1914, 6 months later. And if they didn't have World War I, which weakened Russia, had everybody off guard, and the Jews, the Zionist Jews, not all Jews, had an agreement with England when England was losing the war, called the Balfour Agreement. We're going to look at that again. I found more evidence in the Phoenix Journal that if the Zionist, Illuminati, Jewish type secret societies, which includes more than just Jews, a lot of other people have joined the satanic Luciferic cults, witchcraft. But anyways, if the England was losing the war with Germany, and Germany's crime was that it was growing in world power and strength due to its industrial manufacturing and all that. And I believe also because Germany was a safe haven for a lot of Jews who were fleeing Russia. So anyways, after World War I was about to wrap up, there was a secret conspiracy to send some intelligent agents into Russia, abduct the Tsar and his family in the middle of the night, take them to a remote farmhouse. The people all over the whole country had no idea what was taking place. And I feel this will be something similar. This will happen probably in the United States or Europe. None of us will know what's going on behind the scenes for hours until after the event. So anyways, then the Bolshevik Jews had occupied Russia, and everybody knows a lot of mass murder happened of Christians and other good people. They call it a purge. And that's going to be important later on in this video, a purge. They destroyed the Christian churches, but not the Jewish temples. And they would have Jewish people executed also if they had any mercy or sympathy for the Christians and other good people. They weren't all Christians, but they were people that they didn't want. It was kind of a revenge for the Tsar's treatment of the Jews. And they were doing something called pogroms, P-O-G-R-A-M-S, harsh treatment of the Jews, because apparently the Jews in Russia at that time, for 100 years or whatever, were causing a lot of problems, as well as over the last 2,000 years. Even in Spain and England, the Jews were exiled. Even here in the United States during the Civil War, General Ulysses Grant banned all the Jews from the Tennessee territories. Why? 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 Is it that they just have a propensity to think that they're more intelligent and should control the world, to have their Jewish utopia through deception and a lot of suffering to the people involved in all those wars? So back to this document. Saudi royal family is Jewish king. The more we go to Haji and Umrah, the more Muslims will get killed with that money. So my point is they control Saudi Arabia. They control the religious holy sites, Islamic, Muslim holy sites. And they're making a lot of money off of Haji and Umrah in Kaaba and Medina and oil. So we know why they wanted to take out Saddam Hussein in Iraq. 3 purposes I can think of. One, of course, is to get a lot of the archaeological material. They're looking for something historic. They're looking for artifacts all the way back to the building of the pyramid times. Something involving, so they say, these beings called the Anunnaki. They're down there in Antarctica doing the same thing right now. During Christmas, I don't have to keep repeating myself, but a lot of powerful people from all over the world were beelining it down there. What's going on? So it's going to take more than this video to get all this information out. So they control Saudi Arabia, they control all that area, they invaded Iraq, they control the USA with the Federal Reserve, they control the United Nations, and they've been doing this easily documented for the last 100 years or more. This is 2017. They took over the Federal Reserve, or they took over the USA money supply with their fake named Federal Reserve in 1913. In 1880-something, Albert Pike of the Freemasons wrote his friend in Italy, Mazzini, a letter saying that it would take 3 world wars to bring about a new age and a new world order. And even Albert Pike, the leader of the Freemasons' southern jurisdiction and a general for the South in the Civil War, was working or communicating with psychic meditation or whatever trances with some kind of master, otherworldly beings. And that's a common denominator everywhere we look, even with the Kabbalistic material. They're in cahoots or communicating with these fallen angels and demons, is what I think. Even King Solomon had a magic ring. And again, I say, if you don't have a notebook and a pen, and hit pause when I say these things, and write them down and go look them up, then you're just not going to believe it. You have to see it with your own eyes. But he had a magic ring, King Solomon, with a 6-pointed star, which is on the Israeli flag, which he could use to call forth demons. This is all symbols, geometry, some kind of communication between dimensions. Back to this document, if I can ever get through it. So the Banakunakwa, also spelled Banakunika, Banakunike, anyways, you get the point, was one of the main Jewish tribes living in the 7th century, the 600s, of Medina, and now in Saudi Arabia. In 624, they were expelled during the invasion by Banu Qanaku by the Islamic prophet Muhammad for allegedly breaking the treaty known as the Constitution of Medina. So here we have the prophet Muhammad. So what is a prophet? Apparently, a prophet is someone who has some kind of communication with beings from the other dimension, angels or whatever, or dreams or visions. Or they leave their body and go to this other dimension and get information. That's a prophet. And Jesus says in the Bible to the Jews, look this stuff up that I say, that ye are the killer of your prophets. So apparently the spiritual world sends prophets all the time to try to help us. Conversely, the cast out angels, clearly documented, even in the book of Enoch and so many other books and documents, these beings that had a war in the heavens, the other dimension, are conspiring with people on earth to try to dominate the earth, and they hate the rest of us. Apparently they hate the Muslims and they hate the Christians, and part of this New Age and New World Order is to have anyone who does not swear allegiance to this Lucifer, Antichrist being, whatever they call him, will be beheaded. And if you look up on YouTube, you can see where apparently the governments have been ordering guillotines. It's just too insane to think about. But it gets worse. Much worse. In the 7th century, the Banu Qanata were living in 2 fortresses in the southwestern part of the city of Yorib, now Medina, one of the holy sites for the Muslims, having settled there at an unknown date. Although the Banu Qanako bore mostly Arabic names, they were both ethnically and religiously Jewish. So again, we have to ask, if you're Jewish, what makes you Jewish? Would it be the biological appearance? Like if I go down to Mexico in Cozumel or Cancun, I can recognize a Mayan. And not everybody in Mexico is Mayan, Hispanic. There are a lot of descendants of people that from other kinds of tribes, or even Spaniards from Spain, even some people with Italian descent, but you can recognize a Mayan. The same if you go to Australia, you can recognize one of the Aborigines, the natives. The United States, go to several places, you can recognize American Indians. Nothing wrong with that. So when you see the Jews today, and you scratch your head and you go, well, what do they look like historically? There are many pictures and drawings you can find online, but the Jews of the ancient times had a particular look. They were shorter people, longer noses. They had a look. And then, of course, we all know what European white people look like. And Arabs, what they look like. And if you go look at pictures now of Israel and all the people, like go look up the rainbow parade, the gay parade, in Tel Aviv, and see the crowds of people, I can tell you now, they don't look like this. Like the Jews of old. They look like Europeans. White people, completely. How can that be? You would think back at the time that when Jesus was born, and the area where it's located, right next to Africa, that people were dark, or at least a little dark brown. And even when Jesus had to escape, him and his mother, Israel, Bethlehem, because King Herod had issued a law that all children under 2 were to be murdered, killed, because the wise men, somebody told him about the prophecy of the king. But that was all brown people area, from Egypt to Africa, or black people. So something's not right here. So now even if you look at the Saudi king and his family, you can notice. All right, moving on with this document. In the 1960s, Sawat al-Arab broadcasting station in Cairo, Egypt. Listen up. And the Yemen broadcasting station in Sanaz confirmed the Jewish ancestry of the Saudi family. So you can look up this document. King Faisal al-Saud, at that time, could not deny his family's kindred with the Jews when he declared to the Washington Post, September 17, 1969, stating, "We, the Saudi family, are cousins of the Jews. We entirely disagree with any Arab or Muslim authority." So they're disagreeing, the king of Saudi Arabia, with any Arab or Muslim authority. So obviously they're not Arabs or Muslims. Which shows any antagonism to the Jews, but we must live together with them in peace. Our country, Arabia, is the foundation head of where the first Jew sprang. His descendants spread out all over the world. So that would be the diaspora. For 2,500 years ago, because of turmoil in the Middle East, the Romans had with the Jews and other people, they would disperse from that area to go all over the world. And I think part of the plan was back then, so I've read, is to take up powerful positions and leadership and control all over the world, which they have. Apparently, biblically, they were supposed to do it in a benevolent way, according to the Bible. But that did not happen. They became very malevolent and controlling and trying to own everything and using many evil techniques to ensure that position all over the world to the detriment of the rest of us. That was the declaration of King Faisal al-Saud bin Abdul Aziz. What a name. So because a couple radio stations exposed the ancestry of the Saudi king, the king of Saudi came clean and told the whole entire story to the world. All right, moving on. Are the Saudi royal family Jewish? The Saudi family conceal their Jewish origin. The Saudi dynasty. Where do they come from and who is their real ancestor? Mohammed Sakor, who was ordered killed by the Saudi regime for the following reasons. So this one man named Mohammed Sakor was ordered killed by the Saudi regime for the following reasons. Are the Saudi family members belonging to the tribe of Anzu, Banwell, as they allege to be? Is Islam their actual religion? Are they of an Arab origin at all? So I do know in Saudi Arabia, from my reading, that it is a common occurrence to have people beheaded on the public square if you are acting or saying things derogatory to the king and the royal family. The following facts will blot out all the allegations of the Saudi family and refute all the false statements made by those hypocrites who sold their conscience to this family by falsifying and interpolating the real history of the Saudi family. I mean the journalists, historians who, for financial temporal reward, have inserted an attached genealogy to this family of our great prophet Muhammad, alleging that the Saudis are viceroys of the Almighty. Allah on the earth. And I thought about this thing, reading some of the stuff by the Muslims when they say Allah. And I think Allah means God. So when they say Allah, they mean God. So when we say God, we mean God. So I think in different places of the world they have different names, but it's not different gods. Especially when you listen to what the Islamic Bible, the Quran, teaches, goodwill towards men. So the people in the Middle East are victims of this Jewish aristocratic plan to take over the world. And of course not all Jewish people. A lot of Jewish people, I got the pictures here, are trying to fight it. So a lot of Jewish people want to stop this. All right. It is quite clear that such a flattery is intended to vindicate and justify the Saudis' crimes and atrocities so as to firmly stabilize their throne and to prop the pillars of their despotic regime, which is extremely dictatorial and completely rejected by our great Islamic faith. So the Islamic faith doesn't condone the way the Saudi family, the king and the royalty, treat the people of that vast country. They, I guess, act like they own everything, and all the citizens are slaves. And if you speak up, you get beheaded. Let me read some more. Israel and Saudi Arabia are sisters, because Saudi king, his family, and Emir are all Jews. It's according to this document. Kingship is accursed in our Islamic religion. So the Islamic religion doesn't call for kings in the Holy Quran, because it is an imposed authority of one person and his family members to suppress the people and silence any other voice of opposition to the king's despotic and completely dictatorial rules. So the Islamic religion does not condone dictatorial rule. So kings are denounced in the Holy Quran. In the verse, kings, when they enter a country, they despoil it, and they make the noblest of its people the meanest. Thus do they behave. Apparently it has a reference number to the Quran. Lifestyle of Wahhabi Prince Saudi Awad bin Talal. Nevertheless, the Saudi family ignores this Quran verse and alleges falsely that they are the strongest believers in the Holy Quran, while in interim they issue their strict orders to prohibit such Quran verses from being recited on the radios or the TVs. So the leader of the country, the Saudi king, says they're the strongest supporters of the Quran, but they ban any Quran verses from being recited on the radio or TV. Just like here in the United States, they're working ever so slowly towards making Christianity an evil thing. You got people out there now calling Christian haters because they don't go along with some of the anti-Christian philosophies, teachings. This is all planned. I keep saying it. At the same time, some such verses are strictly forbidden by them to appear written in any journals. You can't even write this stuff in a journal from the Quran because their recitation or printing does affect their seat of majesty. Who are these Saudis? Where do they come from? What is their final goal? The Saudi family members know perfectly well the Muslims all over the world have already known their real Jewish origin. Muslims have now known all their bloody past, which was and is still stuck in the same mire of brutal despotism and atrocity. Presently, they exert their utmost efforts to conceal their Jewish origin by covering themselves with a cloak of the Islamic religion, so as to try to keep their real Jewish ancestry hidden in the dark by connecting their family tree with our holy prophet Muhammad. They forget or ignore that Islam does never give any favorable attention to genealogy or family trees. It favors and honors indiscriminately all human beings whose actions and words are commensurate with the doctrines of the Holy Quran, as confirmed by the following Quran verse. O mankind, we created you from a single pair of a male and female, Adam and Eve, and made you into nations and tribes, so that you may know each other. Not that ye may despise each other. Verily, the most honored of you in the sign of Allah, God, is he who is the most righteous of you. So that's in their Quran 49-13. So anyone who is iniquitous and blasphemous cannot affiliate him or herself with the great prophet Muhammad, even though she may be the closest blood relative to him. So there's more here. Hope you're finding this interesting. I'm not saying it's 100% true. I'm saying that when I looked it up, there were 3,360,000 results. Lots of evidence. Nobody seems to be disputing it. Of course, except for the Saudi king and the royal families. We know that George Bush got his start there. We can see by the Phoenix Journal the activities going on. We can see the map of the Greater Israel Plan, which includes a good portion of Saudi Arabia. We can know that they've taken over the United States. Israeli Prime Minister Sharon said in a heated argument to his Congress, don't worry about the USA, we control the USA. We know that the secret societies conspired to help form the European Union and take the sovereignty away from all those countries. We know that when they had the Switzerland Tunnel in the Alps completed, and they had the grand opening ceremony, it was all satanic, with naked people, skin-tight, see-through clothing, grope each other on a train that rolled through the audience real slow. Demons with horns lowered from the sky. Emmys and Grammys, satanic rituals, football halftime shows, satanic rituals with Madonna. Go look this stuff up. It's all over the world. And then, of course, I've been watching a couple videos of whistleblowers from the Illuminati, which are from the same groups of people, and the rituals they're having, the sacrificing of humans. They think they own the world and they're better than the rest of us. That's the common denomination between the Zionist Jewish people into the Kabbalah and the Talmud. And that's the same philosophy of the Illuminati, the Satanists, and secret societies philosophy. The common denominator is there, repeatedly. Where did the real ancestors of the clan of Mossad come from? In the year 851, a group of men from Al-Masalich clan, which was a branch of Anzul tribe, formed a caravan for buying cereals, wheat and corn, and other foodstuff from Iraq, and transporting it back to Najd. The head of the group was a man called Simeon ben Hathlod. The caravan reached Basra, where the members of the group went to a cereal merchant. So wheat and corn are cereals. They make cereals from wheat or corn. The basic food stuff for a lot of people all over the world, which is another huge concerning issue now that they're genetically modifying that stuff. And the problem with genetically modified foods is simply enough. It's not like regular food. Your intestines and your cells, when it goes to consume it, doesn't recognize it as a food. It recognizes it as an enemy, and it attacks it. And whenever your blood cells attack an enemy, it forms matter around the enemy, causing a tumor. And of course, a lot of that causes cancer. So genetically modified foods are an enemy to our health. Just saying. I read different words and different things come to my mind. We're under attack, I keep saying. And all this stuff is related to the fact we're under attack, which is why I'm reading it. So anyways, the caravan reached Basra, where the members of the group went to a cereal merchant who was a Jew, called Mordecai ben Abraham ben Moshe. During their bargaining with the merchant, the Jew asked them, "Where are you from?" They answered, "From Anzul tribe, the clan of Mashalich." Upon hearing that name, the Jews started to hug so affectionately, each of them saying he himself was also from the clan of Al-Masalich. But he had come to reside in Basra, Iraq, in consequence of a family feud between his father and some of the members of the Ansu tribe. After he recounted to them his fabricated narrative, he ordered his servants to load all of the camels with wheat, dates, and talma, a remarkable deed so generous that astonished the Mashalich men and aroused their pride to find such an affectionate cousin in Iraq, the source of sustenance. They believed each word he said, and because he was a rich merchant of the food commodities, which they were badly in need, they accepted him even though he was a Jew, concealed under the garb of an Arab from Al-Mashalich clan. So again, I'll get back to what I said at the beginning of this video. Fritz Springmeier, in his book, Bloodlines of the Illuminati, the Rockefellers, Rothschilds, so many names, DuPonts, go look it up. Famous names we've all heard are part of this Illuminati, I guess you might say. Jews who converted to Christianity in name only, crypto-Jews. This is important because it's become to my mind that a lot of high-level people in Hollywood and politicians, and a lot of these people, through the secret society, the Freemasonic organizations, Rosie Crucian, even Abraham Lincoln, was a high-level, the leader of the Rosicrucians throughout the United States. And so many more. We all know George Washington was a high-level Freemason. I'm saying that it seems to me that a lot of these people are from the Jewish descent, and they're part of a concealed group of people taking control of our country. Just like they did here. And wait till you hear how brutal they were. Saudis turning Mecca into Las Vegas. So when the caravan was ready to depart from Najd, that Jewish merchant asked them to accept his company because he intended to go with them to his original homeland, Najd. Upon hearing that from him, they wholeheartedly welcomed him with a very cheerful attitude. So this Jewish guy was disguising himself as an Arab from Saudi Arabia. So that concealed Jew named Najd reached Najd with the caravan. In Najd, he started to promulgate a lot of propaganda for himself through his companions, his alleged cousins, a fact which gathered around him a considerable number of new supporters. But unexpectedly, he confronted a campaign of opposition to his views led by Sheikh Shalama Abdullah al-Tamiyan, I'm saying that wrong, who was a Muslim religious preacher in Al-Qasim. So this Jew made it back to Najd, Saudi Arabia, and started touting that he was from this clan and promoting himself and some other material, but one of the Muslim religious preachers called him out on it. The radius of his preaching area included Najd, Yemen, and Hejaz, a fact which compelled the Jew, the ancestor of the present Saud family, to depart from Al-Qasim to Al-Isad, where he changed his name to Mordecai. Wow, that's an interesting name. Or Markan bin Daren near Qutef, Saudi Arabia, where he started to spread among the inhabitants a fabricated story about the shield of our prophet Muhammad, that it was taken as booty by an Arab pagan in consequence of the battle of Uhud between the Arab pagans and the Muslims. That shield, he said, was sold by the Arab pagan to a Jewish clan called Banu Quinaku, who preserved it as a treasure. Saudi Arabia, arms, sales, and corruption. It's the next highlight here. He gradually enhanced his position among the Boudins, that would be the wild Arabs who travel around, caravans, through such stories which indicated how the Jewish clans in Arabia were so influential and deserved high esteem. He gained some personal importance among the Boudins and decided to permanently settle there. At Dayan town near Al-Qatif, which he decided to be his capital on the Persian Gulf. He aspired to make it his springboard for establishing, get this, a Jewish kingdom in Arabia. It gets worse. In order to fulfill his ambitious scheme, he started to approach the desert Arab Boudins for support of his position, and then gradually he declared himself as their king. Lifestyle of Wahhabi Prince Wahb bin Taha. It's not Las Vegas in Riyadh. At that juncture, Ajman tribe, together with the Buna Khalid tribe, became fully aware that the Jewish cunning plan, after they had verified his true identity, and decided to put an end to him. They attacked his town and conquered it, But before arresting him, he had escaped by the skin of his teeth. The Jewish ancestor of the Saudi family, Mordecai, I'm saying it wrong, sought shelter in a farm at the time called Al-Malabid, Gushabi, near Al-Arad, which is called at our present time Al-Radad. I think that's been in the news, that town. The Arab royal family extravagant and selfish lifestyle. He requested the owner of the farm to grant him asylum, so he escaped his own town that he created because the Arabs had caught on to him. And he went out into the desert and he came across this farm and he requested asylum. The farmer was so hospitable, this would be an Arab, that he immediately gave him sanctuary. Now listen when I read this piece of this story. See how it fits in with all the countries all over the world, including the United States. The story has been duplicated again and again. Just saying. It's so sad. So the farmer was so hospitable that he immediately gave him sanctuary. Just like Germany gave sanctuary to the Jews fleeing Russia. Just like England and Spain before they exiled them. And the straw that broke the camel's back, apparently, were blood libels. Bodies of dead children that had been used in some sacrificing ritual by the Jewish people. I made videos on that. I'll be looking at that again. I'm bent on getting to the truth of the matter here. Alright, so the farmer gave him sanctuary. But no longer than a month had he, Mordecai, stayed there. Mordakahi, if you want to write that and try to pronounce it. Stayed there when he assassinated the landlord and all the members of his family, pretending that they were killed by an invading band of thieves. Now remember, after World War I, some espionage Bolshevik Jewish types were sent into Russia, kidnapped his family, took him to a remote farmhouse and executed them all. Like I said, you can find this story repeating itself over and over and over and over, wherever they go. So he said that somebody had attacked the farm and the people had been killed by a band of thieves. Then he pretended that he had bought the real estate from them before the catastrophe happened to them. Accordingly, he had the right to reside there as landlord. He then gave a new name to that place, Al-Daira, the same name that he had lost. What a horrific story. That Jewish ancestor, Mordecai, of the Saudi family, was able to establish a guest house called Madafa on the land he usurped from its victims, and gathered around him a group of hypocrites who started to spread out false propaganda for him that he was a prominent Arab sheikh. He plotted against Sheikh Shahi Salman and Abdullah al-Temani, his original enemy, and he caused their assassinations in the mosque of the town of Al-Zalafai. So just a little bit of interesting historical Saudi king and his royal family who control that state like an iron glove. It's a country called Saudi Arabia. So with that done, and there's more to read here, and whether in this video or another one, I will continue the story. But we're reading the Phoenix Journal for this video. Alright, so back to the other story. So apparently, in the United States, in the Congress, they found out about these plans by the Bush-Reagan people's plan to sell Saudi Arabia, and we now know who they are, if this is true. I did say, if this is true. And there is 3,360,000 results on this issue, as I pointed out. Saudi family appears to be living like aristocratic Jews, and they do have a strong iron fist on the whole country, and they behead people all the time who rise up against them or say something negative about them. And I believe that if they get that kind of grip on the USA, that's what they plan on doing. That's why with this biblical prophesized event, and they want to microchip everybody, the mark of the beast, however they do it. They want to monitor everybody like slaves. And they're giving us these samples, examples, in TV programming and movies, like the Hunger Games movie series. And so many others, which I want to talk about in a moment. Alright, so the Saudis wanted more weapons. And of course they had all that oil. It was raining on them, and they weren't using that money for their own people. They were quite wealthy. And they were Jewish, so they were strong supporters across the waterway with the plans by the Israelis who took over the Palestinians' land in 1946. So there was a bigger plan, and it was supported by Jewish people worldwide. And of course, not all Jewish people. I know Jewish people in the city where I live who are my friends. They don't have any inkling as to this stuff. They're not into Satanism and Luciferianism and having rituals. They're not part of secret societies and the Illuminati. A lot of people who were from the secret societies and the Illuminati, if you go on YouTube, have come out of the closet, have become whistleblowers, and are telling all. The evidence is overwhelming. It just comes. I mean, you got to be blind not to see it if you want to go look for it. These evil cults, these symbolisms that they're showing us all the time, they're real. So the Saudis were unwilling to be left twisting in the winds. Washington representatives of the Saudi government have confirmed that the kingdom will simply look elsewhere for the arms needed for its long-term security requirements. So these corporations that kind of run the world right now, and that Tex Marist has shown to predominantly have Jewish CEOs, probably belonging to different secret societies and cults, the Illuminati, the Zionist organizations, etc. This is a huge plan. Would sell Saudi Arabia weapons through one country or another. So representatives of the Saudi government have confirmed that the kingdom will simply look elsewhere for the arms needed for its long-term security requirements. This would deal an economic blow to the U.S. defense industries. So who controls the U.S. defense industries? Not the U.S. Corporations. Independent and controlling, actually, the representatives and senators. They control our leaders. They put our leaders in place. The thing's backwards now. I'm sure even President Donald Trump is finding out that they control him. Obama apparently recognized that. He spent a lot of time on the golf course and on vacation. He knew that he couldn't do anything he really wanted to do. George Bush Jr., he said, if I was only a king, I could just make decisions. I wouldn't have to deal with the people. I think these people are all crypto. We already know George Bush Jr. and the other one, Bushes and John Kerry and many others. Skull and Bones secret societies. You can't get any more ominous than that. Skull and Bones. These are the people who become our leaders. President Donald Trump. Go look up his mansion in New York City. It's got pictures. It looks like a Freemasonic temple inside. Probably looks like one of those temples or mansions that the Saudi family lives in. It's opulent to the nth degree. And apparently it's claimed that Donald Trump is a high-level Masonic type. A grand wizard, maybe. 33 degrees. But that's what it's claimed, and there seems to be a lot of evidence. And I've got some more information in that direction on this video that's just beyond belief. All right. So if the U.S. couldn't sell the Saudis weapons, they're saying it would deal an economic blow to the U.S. defense industries. Well, I think the U.S. defense industries are creating weapons and preparing for plans to enslave and contain the USA people. Already reeling from cutbacks resulting from the thaw between the U.S. and the Soviet Union. You see, the Arab nations all know what is going on and about the coalition between Israel and the USA. And again, that would not include we people. Our government doesn't listen to us, and actually, it tries to shut the voice down of the opposition. And a lot of people have been assassinated in the USA and the world. People in high positions, people with a voice that a lot of people listen to. If that happens, then you're in trouble. All right. So many Arab nations are aware of the coalition between Israel and the U.S. to control the Middle East through war, force, and power, and get that temple built on the holy mountain. So here we go again. They want to rebuild the King Solomon's temple in Israel. This is all tied. Even the Freemasonic Bible, I've shown the pictures. You can't make this stuff up. My very first video I made, number one, you can see on the back of this Bible, was on the Freemasonic Bible. When I saw some video on YouTube, I watched it, and the guy was showing a Freemasonic Bible. I ordered one. The architecture of the tabernacle. Materials for the tabernacle. So the tabernacle was some kind of building that was used like a tent with communication with angels, and the angels had actually given the people back then a particular design for the tabernacle. And inside the tabernacle was a wall of cloth, heavy-duty cloth, called a veil. And only the really religious people would be in that area of the veiled area of the tabernacle. So the tabernacle was when these spiritual beings, whatever you want to call them, watchers, angels, came to communicate with humans. They didn't want to be publicly seen. Some people speculate they might have been of some kind of reptilian DNA or something, but other people would recognize them as non-human, so they had the tabernacle. Story is very interesting. So anyways, in this Freemasonry, gotta say that word right, Bible, we can see there were plans for the King Solomon's temple. That even looks like on the bottom layer, like a Freemasonic lodge in many of our cities all over the world with the two columns. The floor plan of these things. So I'm just saying the evidence is overwhelming that the Freemasons and the Illuminati and the Zionists, the focal point of where all this is going, over there in the desert, you can go watch my video, the bizarre, see the lions on there? With human heads. The candlesticks. The Ark of the Covenant. The columns, look at the two columns. The candlesticks. The things they're now putting up all over the world or USA during Christmas time instead of the Christian symbols. Just saying, in the Freemasonic Bible, no lack of connecting the dots here, is there? So apparently all these forces, Saudi Arabia, the New Israel, the United States controlled by these Council of Foreign Relations, Bilderberger groups, Heritage Foundation, Freemasonic lodges, a high-level Freemasons, not all the lower levels, come on. And elite Jewish people, and not all Jewish people in your communities, they don't know. If they knew, they would be outraged. All right, back to this document here. Although your James Baker refuses to be drawn into the squabble, he does say that there were 3 signals sent to Saddam Hussein which have been ignored by the U.S. news media. At first he described as export controls on goods shipped to Iraq, announced by the Commerce Department on July 27th. The administration did say, however, that it opposed the tougher sanctions than being considered by the Senate. A second signal was to suspend Commodity Credit Corp. Loan guarantees to Iraq for grain purchases, although that was an action taken by the Agriculture Department way back on April 14th. It was opposed to the State Department, while the third signal was to prevent the export of unspecific items Baker said might prove useful to Iraq in regard to missile and nuclear proliferation. So this is the Phoenix Journal. Back then, page 140. Go look on the internet, find the Phoenix Journals. This is number 20, the Mossad, the Israeli intelligence agency connection. This is interesting when I read this because it just eerily reminds me of 2017, and I'll point that out after I read this paragraph. Something I talked about earlier that's kind of explosive. Do any of you have an eerie sense of history and repetition? Iraq's invasion of Iran, which began a bloody 8.5-year war, which nearly ruined both countries, but also encouraged by the United States, which told Saddam that Iran was weakened internally and ripe for the plucking. It is then so unlikely that Saddam thought he was receiving the same kind of message in regard to Kuwait. So be it. So I guess the USA encouraged Saddam to go after Iran, and then probably encouraged him to go after Kuwait, which the planners in Washington, the elite Zionist Illuminati Jewish types, along with others, and of course not all Jews or all low-level Freemasons, but there's a plan going on. Even gotta remember the names of some of these people sometimes. So anyways, like I said, I'll just read this next paragraph, then I'll get to this interesting story. Now for a bit of confirmation regarding the war schedule for October 3rd, which you ones want to discount and discredit Hanton for the telling. Hanton is the publisher, author of these Phoenix Journals. I did not make the plan. I only reported that which was set and planned by the Israeli coalition and the global elite. That's what's written here. It was planned on that day so that by the day of October 8th, the Jewish holy day, the foundation stone could be laid for the temple, and the great celebration would take place. So that was a big occurrence over there in Palestine, now called Israel and Jerusalem, that they went to the mosque, the religious Arab holy site, and they laid the foundation stone for the rebuilding of King Solomon's temple. While all this is going on, this encouragement of Iraq to invade Iran, encouragement of Iraq to invade Kuwait, and then the sneak attack on Iraq, and immediately after they attack Iraq, and after 9/11, I'm not sure about before, the first time that George Bush went into Iraq in 1990, was it? But after 9/11, a lot of professional archaeologists supported by military forces were going to the museums and also digging in a lot of sites all over the Middle East looking for artifacts. Of course, now we know they got the goings-on in Antarctica looking for artifacts. When President Donald Trump was in his election campaign, the election day, John Kerry and many other dignitaries around the world were down there in Antarctica. What was with that? What did they find? When the war was postponed, the extremists refused to postpone the stone laying for King Solomon's temple. Here it's written in bold letters by Hanton. I'm going to put my finger here and show you. Bold letters. I'll read it to you. You are in grave circumstances, of which magnitude you have no notion, for the facts are kept from you. It is indeed of the most serious incident. So back in 1990 they invaded Iraq. 11 years later, 9/11, and there's a lot that happened in between. The Twin Towers fell, and we blamed it on the Arabs. And since then, there's been a relentless attack on all the Arab nations, not Saudi Arabia. So with that said, I'm going to take a look at a current event situation that I have discovered. It's quite bizarre. So I watch videos. There's just some information here. There's a video called Jared Kushner, the man who got Trump elected. You can look it up on YouTube. He owns a skyscraper, get this, at 666 Fifth Avenue. Now, no person in their normal frame of mind, if you've done any research at all, would buy a building at 666 Maple Street. Anything, 666. There was a documentary over there in BBC in England about this guy. I've mentioned this before, but I remember way before I began my investigation, but I watched this documentary, and it was quite bizarre because this guy went to get a license plate for his car, and it was 666 in the tag number. And the lady behind the counter said, "You don't have to take this tag. Let me get you another one." And the guy laughed it off. He said, "You crazy, you're superstitious." And he took the tag. I'll make the story short because I've explained it in previous videos. But needless to say, he lost his job, he lost his health, he lost his wife, he lost everything. His whole life was crumbling around month by month, week by week, year after year, until at one point he said, "I can't take it anymore." And he turned in the tag. He got a different tag. He found another job, a beautiful wife, and things just started going better for him. So apparently there is something to these symbols and these numbers. Like Aleister Crowley changed the spelling of his name so that in a numerology calculator it would be 666. So here's Jared Kushner, a Jewish man, worldly populated, married to Donald Trump's daughter Ivanka. And Benjamin Netanyahu, on the video I watched, was on stage and he looked down at Jared and he goes, "Jared, tell him how long we've known each other." So they're like well-acquainted friends. This is the man who has Donald Trump's ear. Strangely enough, during Bernard Baruch, is that his name? Well, I'll get that material. It's in one of my videos I made on Henry Ford, the automaker's books, the Dearborn Independent, where he bought a newspaper to tell all about the Jewish activities after the World War I event. Well, apparently, a similar situation happened back then, that Woodrow Wilson had this Jewish man who had his ear. To the exclusion of Congress and the representative, he was surrounded by Jewish people during World War I. And I'm thinking, how weird is that we have a similar situation with Jared Kushner at the beginnings of what some are saying that World War III is looming. And the people who now control the White House. So it seems. And I have more evidence. So George Soros, this is also weird, because he was the one with the Democratic Party causing all the destruction worldwide, promoting the New Age and New World Order. But he was the one who made Jared Kushner, the family, where they are today, or one of the reasons. He invested $250 million in the Kushner startup family as a credit line. Can you imagine if somebody gave you a $250 million credit line? Something going on here? And then this Jared Kushner meets up with Ivanka. They get married. And we know about these Illuminati and these elites, high-level Jewish families. They love to marry into the other aristocratic families. It's all intentional planning. And if you watched any videos on the Illuminati, you know they intermarry all the time. Soros says, I took notes when I watched this video I just told you about, Jared Kushner, the man who got Trump elected. You can go look it up. I took some notes here. It gets really explosive here in a minute. Says he decapitalized the banks. He wants to decapitalize, he wants the banking system to fail, which means the stock market has to fail. Then work on a better world order. But Soros also said in that interview, when the interviewer asked him, "Are you religious?" and he said no. "Do you believe in God?" He said no. He says mankind created God, not the other way around. That God created mankind. People just have to understand the thinking. Soros has a long and productive relationship with the Kushner family. Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister for Israel right now, has had a long and productive relationship, I suspect, with the Kushner family. He said he has known them forever. Friends. Soros says the main obstacle to a world order is the USA. So that's why they're attacking us so strongly with the propaganda and trying to destroy the youth and the people of this country. Eric Schmidt, CEO for Google, put his name in a 666 calculator. Yep, 666. Numerology calculator online, you can find one. Says Jared Kushner is the biggest surprise in the 2016 elections. He ran the campaign. This is a 36-year-old man. And it's in says here, Ivanka and Jared are Orthodox Jews. Now here's where I'm going to say this, and you can think what you want to. But Jared Kushner hires horror movie publicist to work in the White House. Now think about that. Think about Hitler. Think about the people they needed to be put in high places to go around and do the things they did. So he puts a publicist to work in the White House. Josh Raphael. R-A-F-F-E-L. Chief Get Out publicist. White House Office of an American Innovation. Films like The Purge, Paranormal Activity, and Get Out are among the horror movies that this publicist, Josh Kushner, I guess works on getting them out there into the public and popular. Advertising. Whatever. The Purge, Election Year, Keep America Great is on the movie. I realize this is going to be a lot to believe. I have to look all this stuff up, as you see. But here's a picture, I guess on the movie disc or something, or a poster, of The Purge, Election Year, Keep America Great. So the publisher of this movie is hired by Josh Kushner. Apparently he had worked for Josh Raphael used to work for Jared Kushner as a publicist also. So I went online and I found some snippets of the Purge Election Year 2016, the movie. Horrifically satanic. They had a couple people tied up in a chair. Like a sacrifice, like what I've been talking about in my videos. And they had one guy on stage. Like an Illuminati satanic ritual that the whistleblowers talk about. And these two people, a male and a female, tied up in a chair. And a whole audience of people. Can you just imagine a whole audience of people that are into pedophilia, witchcraft, sacrificing people, controlling the world, perverts, demented people, do anything, kill anybody for wealth and power. A whole room. It's in this snippet. You can go look up The Purge Election Year. And the speaker says to the guy on the stage, "It's your turn now. Do you want the light?" And the man's part of these satanic peoples. And he says, "Yes, I want the light." And he hands him a knife. And he points towards the man who's tied up in a chair. And he said, "Go and kill him and feel what it feels like and get the light." I watched the snippet. I couldn't believe it. This is the guy that Jared Kushner, who has the ear of Donald Trump, who just sent 59 missiles to Syria, bombed them. The huge mother of bombs of all times dropped off on Afghanistan recently. Who purchased a building at 666 Fifth Avenue. Who's a friend with Benjamin Netanyahu, if you look up what he said in Fink Spar. It should concern anybody about these connecting of the dots. I'll read so I may look up a little bit more here I found online. Here's another picture. Satanic? You think? go and watch it, it's clearly, I guess people are just, it's beyond my capacity to contemplate it. But apparently a lot of people out there in the public arena, even here in the United States and probably Europe, are into this satanic stuff. Making we Christians and other decent people, even the Muslims, we've been reading about that, are being murdered, and our world is being taken from us. By whom? Look at the people in the background. Go watch 2013 Super Bowl halftime show. Plus or minus, different ones at that period. The Olympic openings with Lady Gaga. Emmys and Grammys with Katy Perry and Beyonce. Super Bowl halftime shows. You'll see this stuff. And the publicist who's part of this is now part of the government to involve American technologies in the federal government. The guy. So much more do I have here. All right. Another document I found. Jared Kushner hires Blumhouse PR chief Josh Raphael for White House role. So you see what he was involved in. Go and watch it. You won't believe it. Hollywood's publicist Josh Raphael has joined the White House Office of American Innovation. Raphael, 32, previously represented Jared Kushner's Kushner Companies when he worked for Hiltzik Strategies. So I'm not so sure where Soros injected the $250 million credit line. Donald Trump's son-in-law has been tasked with injecting ideas from the business world into the federal bureaucracy. Hope Hicks, another Hitzero veteran, is part of the Trump administration's communications team. After leaving Hiltzik in 2015, Raphael ran communication for Blumhouse Productions, the producer of horror hits such as The Purge, that we just saw here, and Insidious. That's another movie, Insidious. In a business studded with profane and controlling mouthpieces, he was well respected among entertainment journalists for his sane, sensible style and his wit. Raphael confirmed his new job to Variety magazine, but declined to offer additional comments. I don't know. It just seems to me like we just hired the creator of Frankenstein to work in the White House. Now, he was just a publicist, but apparently he did a good job. So anyways, finishing my notes here. Banner, I guess one of the people in the State Department with Donald Trump, was kicked out. Banner sees the Kushner and his allies, he's buds with Benjamin Netanyahu, Prime Minister for Israel, as globalist Democrats, and they see Banner as a nationalist. So Banner was ejected from the White House, a nationalist, pro-USA, and Kushner has Donald Trump's ear. He's claimed by Banner to be a globalist Democrat, which is part of the New Age and the New World Order. And Soros is involved. He made the Kushner family with the $250 credit line loan. And Hungarian Prime Minister accused Soros of trying to destroy Western Christianity culture. He says Europeans must stick to the Western Christian values to survive. So this isn't just my perception or theory what's going on. I've read and watched a lot of videos, read a lot of newspapers. I've got one right here I'll share again. During these Phoenix journals where I read about the Spotlight newspaper, I ordered one. Stuff you can find. Kissinger, war with Iran, Iran. I've been reading articles out of this paper on these Phoenix Journal videos, so I thought I'd do another one on this video, just to continue to show the connecting of the dots. Whether it's Carter, Clinton, Bush Sr., Reagan, Bush Jr., and now, apparently, Donald Trump, who seems to have completely surrounded himself with the very people he said he was going to drain the swamp. Is that the words he used? And everybody is now going, oh my goodness, he's not doing anything what he said. But back then, in January 19th, 1981, Carter made a secret deal for U.S. to back Israel. Is there any doubt about what I'm talking about? The evidence? President Carter made a secret commitment to Mossad Begin to commit U.S. troops to fight on behalf of Israel in the next Arab-Israeli war, according to a Foreign Service officer who first was fired. So this officer working for the government was fired for refusing to distort or change official reports. I've looked into this. Alexandria Johnson, former vice consul in Jerusalem, an intelligence analyst, smart person, you think? Told Bob Bartel on the Spotlight. Here's Bob Bartel. That the secret Begin-Carter Accord was one of the discoveries she made while working for the State Department's Bureau of Intelligence and Research and while serving as a Foreign Service officer in Jerusalem since Spotlight, December 22nd, 1980. On the program, Ms. Johnson detailed the gruesome methods of torture inflicted on Palestinians in Jerusalem and the West Bank by Israeli, and outlined how Israeli intelligence has knowledge of secret information even before the high officials in the United States government do. So whenever these intelligence services overseas send a report to the USA people in Washington, the Israelis have already previewed those intelligence reports. She learned of the Begin-Carter Agreement when Samuel Lewis, a U.S. ambassador to Israel in Tel Aviv, met with the staff of consul generals. Lewis dropped the political bombshell to the surprise of the assembled staff, who expected some varied pleasantries, Johnson recalled. So during a meeting, he told them what was going on, and some of the staff are like, oh my God. And he thought they'd all be thinking it was funny or good. You got these two camps here. You got some people left in this world with a conscience. who believe in right and wrong. And then you got all these evil people today bringing us the purge. Make America great. Keep America great. You should watch the snippets of that movie on YouTube. If you're like me, you almost can't watch just one of the short snippets. It's too gruesome. And that guy now works on the White House advisor or working for Jared Kushner, who has the ear to Donald Trump, much to the exclusion of others, because Bannon was kicked out, the nationalist. Again, this is like deja vu. Woodrow Wilson in 1913, 1914, 1915, during World War I. Bartell asked Miss Johnson why the establishment media has concealed from the American people such a jolting revelation that carries such distressing implications. The establishment media are walking in fear of Zionist lobbying groups, she explained. This is 1981, January 9th. Back then, they were afraid of the Israeli lobbies. In the event that they publish a story which even makes a gesture at even-handedness, they are subject to enormous pressure from special interest groups. She said, and not surprisingly, they bowed to these pressures. A summary of consular reports exposing the torture of Palestinian prisoners by the Israeli government is what led to her dismissal from her job with the Foreign Service Department. Her consul general had requested her to write a summary in 1978. So somebody asked her to write a summary of some of the problems in Palestine. When I prepared the summary, it proved damning. She said the consul general, frightened for his own position. So when the consul general over there in Tel Aviv, Israel, read her report, he freaked out. So he was frightened for his own position, wished to suppress the report, and found that the simplest way of doing that was bringing Alexander Johnson's career to an end. I did succeed in sending it to the higher up stateside, but by a fortuitous series of bureaucratic coincidences. But she was fired, even though the report received high attention from the State Department. So Bartell asked from the Spotlight newspaper, what did they do to you during the time when you were in disfavor with the Consul General? So got another headline here called Leak to Israelis. I continued in my post in Jerusalem investigating cases of Israeli torture. She replied during this period, Ms. Johnson reports were leaked to the Israeli embassy in Washington, although State Department officials in the Bureau of Human Rights and Humanitarian Affairs and the Bureau of Consulate Affairs were simultaneously coming up empty-handed in their attempts to obtain copies of the report. I start misspeaking when I need water. From December 1972 through January 1975, Miss Johnson served brilliantly, according to former colleagues in the State Department's Bureau of Intelligence and Research, before being sent abroad to work as a career Foreign Service officer. Her reports have been reviewed by many top officials, including Henry Kissinger. I'm going to skip one paragraph and go on to another one here. Miss Johnson explained that Israeli torture of Palestinians is systematic. The key here is the evidence of organization and policy. She said, built-in torture facilities include refrigerator cells, rooms with meat hooks, rooms with high-frequency piped-in noises, and she said cells with spikes in the floor, set so that the prisoner can neither sit nor lie down without pain. So there you have it. This lady lost her job for telling the truth. Here's the reporter for the Spotlight. And Carter makes a secret deal. And they're torturing the Palestinian people back in 1981. We'll read a little bit more here from the Phoenix Journal and finish this video. We're past the 2-hour mark. So apparently, there'll be more videos from this particular Phoenix Journal because I've got a few pages to go. I can't seem to get very far because there's so much material. And I like to research it and get proof that I've been showing. So Air Force Chief General Michael Dugan, page 140 at the bottom there. Let's just get a little bit more information about what was going on back then. Why did General Dugan get canned? Really, why did he? Because he created explosive diplomatic problems when he disclosed that Israel had advised the United States on targeting within Iraq. So Israel's in control. The general said Israeli sources advised the Pentagon that the most effective way to affect Saddam Hussein's thinking is to attack his family, his palace guard, and his mistress, of which he has none. So is he saying President Saddam Hussein didn't have a mistress? President Bush, of course, has labored tirelessly and endlessly to keep Israel from public attention in the Iraq crisis for fear of losing Arab support. So they never want Israel to be mentioned in all this, but actually, as Prime Minister Sharon of Israel said, they control the USA. As we know from 1913, when they created the Federal Reserve, they control the USA money, hence they control the country. They've crashed it economically 8 times or more. And with all the Israeli political action committees and the other Israeli organizations, they control our country. Anti-Defamation League, B'nai B'rith, and so many more. So the politicians are laboring tirelessly and endlessly to keep Israel from public attention. And here's Donald Trump with Jared Kushner, who hires the publicist for The Purge, which is a horrific depiction of the USA. He put it most succinctly: the Arabs might be disturbed by Iraq, but they'll take anything over accepting Israel. So the Arabs know. Okay, that was page 140. So I'll end this video here. Apparently, I'll make some more on this Phoenix Journal. I don't want to belabor this forever, but I compare what's happening then, what happened then, and what happened in 9/11, and what's happening now, and what was happening since Albert Pike wrote about the 3 world wars in 1880, World War I, World War II, and so much more of these elitists using the USA and apparently European nations and other nations all over the world for some new age, new world order, some ultimate slave order, and they want to depopulate the planet by about 80%, thinking it'll be much easier to maintain and control 20%. So think about that if they do let loose some nukes and have a nuclear war. or put some kind of plague in those sky-sprayed chemicals in the sky, or something. Crashing the economic system and having the people have a civil war killing each other, which is what they're famous for doing. Thank you for watching my video, Rick Mariko reporting.